Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Clinton Victory Election Series. Today we will be going over the 2026 midterm elections and taking a look at Donald Trump's approval rating, the current president. Donald Trump currently has a 46% approval rating, 52% disapprove, giving him a net disapproval of 6%. Pretty low for a president coming into their second midterm. The retiring GOP senators are as follows: Jeff Sessions of Alabama, David Perdue of Georgia, Jim Risch of Idaho, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Susan Collins of Maine, Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, and Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. The retiring Democrat senators are John Hickenlooper of Colorado, Dick Durbin of Illinois, Gene Shaheen of New Hampshire, Jeff Merkley of Oregon, Jack Reed of Rhode Island, and Mark Warner of Virginia. It is now 7 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. We can now make a projection out of the state of Kentucky. Matt Bevin will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate, succeeding the retiring Senator Mitch McConnell. He will defeat Charles Booker by a margin of 15 percentage points. Out of the state of Virginia, Governor Hala Ayala will be elected to the Senate in her first term, succeeding Mark Warner. She will defeat former Congressman Scott Taylor by 20 percentage points, a massive victory for the incumbent governor. Now the Georgia Senate race currently too close to call. Teresa Tomlinson currently has a 36-point lead over former Congresswoman Karen Handel. Out of South Carolina Senate race too close to call. State Senator Mandy Norrell has a 28-point lead over Senator Mark Burns. And here's the current Senate composition so far. Republicans being led by Mike Crapo. They are leading by one seat, 35 to 34. The Democrats being led by Chuck Schumer. Out of Georgia's governor race, we can now project that Cassim Reed will be elected at poll closings. We can make this projection now. This is a net gain for the Democrats, as he will go on to defeat Vernon Jones by 10 percentage points. Out of Vermont's governor race, Phil Scott will be re-elected to another term, as he will go on to defeat T.J. Donovan by 20 percentage points. Out of South Carolina's governor race, currently close to call, Mia McLeod has a 20-point lead over Pamela Evan. And here's the current governor's composition so far. Republicans being led by Hollingsworth, I forget his first name. They have 7 seats. And the Democrats being led by Stephen Sweeney, they have 6 seats. It is now 7:30 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of West Virginia Senate race, Pat McKeon will succeed the retiring Senator Shelley Moore Capito. He will go on to defeat Richard Ojeda by 30 percentage points. Out of North Carolina Senate race, currently too close to call, Erica Smith has an 18-point lead over incumbent Mark Meadows. Now out of Georgia Senate race, we can now project that Teresa Tomlinson will flip this seat blue as she goes on to defeat Karen Handel by 7 percentage points, underperforming Cassim Reed's numbers on the governor level. Out of South Carolina Senate race, too close to call, Mandy Norrell now leading by 8 points over Mark Burns. And here's the current Senate composition. Republicans still lead 36 to 35. Out of Ohio's governor race, currently too close to call, John Cranley has a 22-point lead over Ron Hood. Out of South Carolina's governor race, too close to call, Mia McLeod's lead now drops to about 10 points over Pamela Evan. Here's the governor's composition. No change here. Still 7-6 in Republicans' favor. It is now 8 p.m. We have a big batch of states now have poll closings. Out of Alabama Senate race, John Merrill will be elected to succeed Jeff Sessions in the United States Senate. He will defeat Randall Woodfin by a narrow margin, narrow for Alabama, by 15 points. Out of Oklahoma Senate race, Scott Pruitt will be re-elected to a second term in the United States Senate, defeating Kendra Horn by 30 percentage points. Out of Delaware Senate race, Chris Coons will be re-elected. He will go on to defeat Tom Kobach by 25 points. Out of Illinois Senate race, Sherry Bustos will be elected to her first term in the United States Senate, succeeding the retiring Senator Dick Durbin. She will defeat Rodney Davis by 20 points. Out of Maine Senate race, a gain for the Democrat Shenna Bellows will be elected to her first term in the United States Senate. She will defeat incumbent Richard Bennett. No, scratch that. Not the incumbent. That's Susan Collins, but Shenna Bellows will defeat Richard Bennett by 13 percentage points. Out of Massachusetts Senate race, Joe Kennedy III will be re-elected to a second term in the United States Senate. He will go on to defeat Shiva Ayadurai by 40 points, Kennedy being very popular in the state of Massachusetts. Out of New Hampshire, Colin Van Osten will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate. He will defeat Don Bolduc by 14 points. Out of New Jersey Senator Cory Booker will be re-elected. He will go on to defeat Stuart Meisner by 23 points. Out of Rhode Island Senator Matt Brown will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate. He will go on to defeat Scott Avedisian by 23 points. Out of Mississippi Senator too close to call, J.P. Hughes Jr. has a 18-point lead over Cindy Hyde-Smith, the incumbent senator, who is very unpopular in the state of Mississippi. Out of Tennessee Senator too close to call, Andy Burke has a 4-point lead over incumbent Manny Sethe. Out of South Carolina Senator, a big win for the Democrats right now. Mandy Norrell will be elected to her first term in the Senate, flipping South Carolina's Senate seat blue. The first time a Democrat has been a senator from South Carolina since Strom Thurmond before he switched parties to the Republican. Mandy Norrell, big victory here as she defeats the incumbent by 3 percentage points. Out of North Carolina Senator race too close to call, Erica Smith has a 12-point lead over the incumbent Mark Meadows. And here's the current Senate composition. Democrats now lead 43 to 38. Out of Alabama's governor race, Linda Blanchard will be elected for her second term as governor as she goes on to defeat Malika Fortier by 30 points, severely outperforming the Senate challenger John Merrill. Out of New Hampshire's governor race, Chris Sununu will be re-elected to another term as governor, defeating Steve Marchand by 14 points. Out of Oklahoma's governor race, Kevin Stitt will be elected to his first term as governor. He will defeat Monroe Nichols by 30 points. Out of Tennessee's governor race, Andy Ogles, the congressman, will be elected to his first term as governor, defeating Marquita Johnson by 13 percentage points. Out of Connecticut's governor race, Joe Ganim will be re-elected as governor. He will go on to defeat Tim Reeves by 17 percentage points. Out of Illinois' governor race, Juliana Stratton will be re-elected. She will go on to defeat Darren Bailey by 25 points. Out of Maine's governor race, Troy Jackson, he will be re-elected as governor, defeating Ken Fredette by 18 percentage points. Out of Maryland's governor race, Tom Perez, he will be re-elected out of the state of Maryland, defeating Kelly Schultz by 33 percentage points. Out of Massachusetts, Maura Healey will be re-elected as governor, defeating the former Senator Scott Brown by 33 percentage points. Out of Pennsylvania's governor race, Josh Shapiro being re-elected at poll closing, he will be projected to beat Doug Mastriano by 14 percentage points. Out of Rhode Island's governor race, Dan McKee, he will be re-elected. He will go on to defeat Ken Block by 20 points out of the state of Rhode Island's governor race. Out of Florida's governor race, too close to call, Nikki Fried has a 20-point lead over former Congressman Adam Putnam. Out of Ohio's governor race, still too close to call, John Cranley's lead now drops to about 12 points over Ron Hood. Out of South Carolina's governor race, too close to call, Mia McLeod has a 6-point lead over Pamela Evans. Here's the current governor's composition. Democrats now lead 13 seats to 11 seats. It's now 8:30 p.m. We have poll closings out of the state of Arkansas. And out of Arkansas Senate race, we can project that Tom Cotton will be re-elected to another term in the United States Senate, defeating former Lieutenant Governor Bill Halter by 15 points. Out of Tennessee Senate race, we can now project that Manny Sethe will be re-elected to a second term in the United States Senate. He will defeat Andy Burke by 8 percentage points. A very close election for the state of Tennessee. And a big win for the Republicans out of North Carolina. Mark Meadows will be re-elected to a second term of the United States Senate, narrowly defeating Erica Smith just by 1 percentage point. This is most likely due to Erica Smith being pretty far to the left, turning off a lot of independent voters, as a lot of them went to Mark Meadows in this election. Out of Mississippi, too close to call, J.P. Jr. has a 12-point lead over Cindy Hyde-Smith. And here's the governor's composition, or Senate composition. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats still lead 43 to 41. The Republicans are making up ground as we go on through the night. Out of Arkansas's governor race, Sarah Sanders will be re-elected to another term as governor. She will defeat Jay Martin by 20 points, outperforming Tom Cotton. Out of Florida, currently too close to call, Nikki Fried has a 12-point lead over Adam Putnam. Ohio's governor race, too close to call, John Cranley has an 8-point lead over Ron Hood. Out of South Carolina, their governor race, too close to call. Mia McLeod has a 2-point lead over Pamela Abbott. Here's the current governor's competition. Republicans making up ground slowly but surely, as they are only one seat behind the Democrats, 13-12 in the Dems' favor. It is now 9 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of Colorado Senate race, Andrew Romanoff will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate, succeeding John Hickenlooper as he defeats Ken Buck by 25 points. Out of Nebraska Senate race, Pete Ricketts will be re-elected to his second term as he goes on to defeat Steve Lathrop by 16 points. Out of South Dakota Senate race, Skylar Borgum will be re-elected to a second term in the United States Senate. She will defeat Brendan Johnson by 20 points. Out of Wyoming Senate race, Liz Cheney will be elected to her first term in the Senate, succeeding Cynthia Loomis. She will defeat Mary Trauner by 35 points. Out of Kansas Senate race, too close to call. Paul Davis has a 10-point lead over incumbent Roger Marshall. Out of Louisiana Senate race, too close to call. Mitch Landrio has a 14-point lead over Paul Hollis. Out of Michigan Senate race, too close to call. Abdul El Sayed has a 36-point lead over incumbent Bill Schutz as our polls are closing, and we get numbers out of Detroit. Out of Minnesota Senate race, too close to call. Richard Painter, a former Republican turned Democrat, has a 40-point lead over incumbent Jason Lewis. Out of New Mexico Senate race, too close to call. Incumbent Martin Heinrich has a 40-point lead over former Albuquerque Mayor Richard Berry. At a Texas Senate race, Christina Ramirez has a 12-point lead over incumbent Pat Fallon. And now we can make a projection. Close call out of Mississippi, but Cindy Hyde-Smith will be re-elected to another term in the United States Senate. She will defeat Jake Hughes Jr. just by 1%. Very narrow for a state like Mississippi. It goes to show how bad of an incumbent Cindy Hyde-Smith is. And now here is the Senate composition. Republicans retake the lead. They have 45 seats to the Democrats' 44 seats. Out of Colorado's governor race, Diane Primavera will be re-elected to her second term as governor, defeating Heidi Ganahl by 23 percentage points. Out of Minnesota's governor race, Peggy Flanagan will be re-elected to another term as governor. She will defeat Matt Burke by 15 points, or 14 points, excuse me. Out of New Mexico's governor race, Howie Morales will be elected to his first term as governor, defeating Rebecca Dow by 14 percentage points. Out of New York's governor race, Kathy Hochul will be re-elected as governor once again, defeating Rob Ostorano by 25 points. Out of Nebraska's governor race, Jim Pillen, he will be re-elected as governor, defeating Bob Christ by 11 percentage points. Very close for an election in Nebraska. Out of South Dakota's governor race, Larry Roden will be elected to his first term as governor, defeating Jennifer Kynes by 25 percentage points. Out of Wyoming's governor race, perennial candidate no more, Rex Ramel has been elected to his very first statewide office ever after multiple failed attempts in both Wyoming and Idaho. Rex Ramel will be elected as the governor of Wyoming. He will defeat Chris Rothfuss by 35 percentage points. Out of Arizona's governor race, too close to call, the unpopular incumbent Katie Hobbs a 30-point lead over Karen Robeson currently. Out of Kansas' governor race, Lynn Rogers has a roughly 26-point lead over the former Attorney General Derek Schmidt. Out of Michigan's governor race, too close to call, Garland Gilchrist, the incumbent governor, the incumbent lieutenant governor, has a 36-point lead over state congressman Shane Hernandez. Out of Texas governor race, too close to call, former HUD Secretary Julian Castro has a 22-point lead over incumbent Greg Abbott. Out of Wisconsin's governor race, too close to call, incumbent Mandela Barnes, pretty unpopular statewide in Michigan. However, he currently holds a 22-point lead over Republican Tim Mickles. Out of Florida's governor race, too close to call, Nikki Fried has an 8-point lead over Adam Putnam. Out of Ohio's governor race, too close to call, John Cranley has a 2-point lead over Ron Hood. Out of South Carolina's governor race, too close to call, Mia McLeod has a 1-point lead over Pamela Abbott. Here's the governor's composition. Democrats retake the lead, 17 seats to 15 seats. This is anyone's ball game as to who controls the Governors Association. It is now 10 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of Iowa Senate race, big win out of Iowa as we are now projected as at poll closing. Incumbent Matthew Whitaker will be re-elected to his second term to the United States Senate, defeating Michael Franken by 10 percentage points. A sexual assault scandal hindered Franken's chances of flipping this seat, and Whitaker is going to cruise to re-election by a safe margin. Out of Montana Senate race, too close to call, a state that was supposed to go to Democrats right at poll closings. However, these numbers say differently. Will McCollum has an 18-point lead over Steve Daines currently. Out of Kansas Senate race, Roger Marshall will be re-elected to a second term in the United States Senate. He would defeat Paul Davis by 10 percentage points. A big win for Roger Marshall. Out of Michigan Senate race, Abdul El Sayed will flip Michigan Senate race red to blue, as he'll be the first Arabic senator elected to the United States Senate, defeating Bill Shute by 7 percentage points. Out of Minnesota Senate race, Richard Painter will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate, defeating the incumbent Jason Lewis by 9 points. Out of New Mexico Senate race, Martin Heinrich will be re-elected to another term in the Senate. He would defeat Richard Berry by 9 percentage points, this race being a lot closer than it should have been due to Richard Berry's popularity in urban New Mexico. Out of Louisiana Senate race, still too close to call, Mitch Landrieu has an 8-point lead over Paul Hollis currently. Out of Texas Senate race, too close to call, Christina Ramirez now has a 6-point lead over Pat Fallon. And now here is the current Senate composition. It is tied between the two parties. Just like the Governor's Association, this is anyone's ball game. And this is clearly a blue wave year. As we'll take a look at the House earlier, Democrats are doing phenomenal in the House. But statewide, Democrats aren't having so much luck. Well, they have flipped a couple seats so far, but still, they aren't showing signs of gaining a majority, as we have plenty of swing seats left to go and plenty of red seats to call and plenty of blue seats to call. We could be seeing at a tied Senate after tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Out of Iowa's governor race, too close to call, State Senator Ross Smith has a 4-point lead over incumbent Adam Gregg. Out of Nevada's governor race, incumbent Marilyn Kirkpatrick is trailing Sheriff Joe Lombardo by 30 points. Out of Michigan's governor race, Garland Gilchrist will be elected to his first term as governor, defeating Shane Hernandez by 7 points. Big win for the Democrats, keeping another Rust Belt governor seat for at least another 4 years. Out of Arizona's governor race, Katie Hobbs now has a 10-point lead over Karen Robeson. Out of Kansas governor race, too close to call, Lynn Rogers has a 6-point lead over Derek Schmidt. Out of Texas governor race, too close to call, Julian Castro has a 12-point lead over Greg Abbott. Out of Wisconsin governor race, too close to call, Mandela Barnes has a 12-point lead over Tim Mickles. Out of Florida's governor race, too close to call, Nikki Fried has a 2-point lead over Adam Putnam. Out of Ohio's governor race, John Franley has a 1-point lead over Ron Hood. This is going to the wire out of Ohio's governor race. Out of South Carolina's governor race, too close to call, a statistical tie here. This is going to be razor thin out of South Carolina. Again, Republicans or Democrats flip the South Carolina governor seat. Now here is the governor's composition. Democrats lead 18 seats to 15. This is really, really close election out of this midterm cycle. It is now 11 p.m. and the following states have poll closing. This should mostly benefit the Democrats. Let's see if they win enough to get majorities. Out of Idaho Senate race, Russ Fulcher will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate, defeating Michelle Sennett by 35 percentage points. A win for the Republicans. Out of Oregon's Senate race, not governor, the Senate race, Steve Novick will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate, succeeding Jeff Merkley. He will defeat Mark Callahan by 27 points. And we can now make a call in the Louisiana Senate race. Paul Hollis will be elected to his first term in the United States Senate, succeeding Bill Cassidy. He will defeat Mitch Landrieu by a narrow margin of 3 percentage points. Mitch Landrieu being a very good candidate for Democrats put up this cycle, but Paul Hollis was still able to defeat Mitch Landrieu due to the red nature of Louisiana. Now, a big win for Republicans out of Texas Senate race. Pat Fallon will be re-elected to his second term as a senator, defeating Christina Ramirez. Christina Ramirez seen as too far to the left, bringing off a bunch of Hispanic and independent voters that swung heavy for Pat Fallon this election. And now we can project that the majority will go to the Republican Party. The Republicans will win the majority in the United States Senate. But out of Montana Senate race, Currently too close to call. Wilmot Collins has a 6-point lead over Steve Daines. Now here's the current composition. Republicans have 50 seats. They have 50 seats, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, you might be saying, well, why do they have the majority? Well, that's because Vice President Joni Ernst is a tiebreaker. So if we do have a 50-50 Senate, Joni Ernst will most likely tiebreak in Republicans' favor. Out of California's governor race, Kevin Paffrath will be elected to his first term as governor as he defeats Kevin Faulconer by 45 percentage points. A big victory for Kevin Paffrath as he was able to win over a bunch of conservative voters who didn't like Kevin Faulconer's moderate rhetoric. And now over at Hawaii's governor race, Kai Kahil will be re-elected to a second term as governor as he goes on to defeat Hukaiona by 30 percentage points. Out of Oregon's governor race, Tina Kotek will be re-elected as governor, defeating Christine Drazen by 17 points. Out of Idaho's governor race, Janice McGetchen will be re-elected as governor of Ohio, defeating David Bader by 30 points. Out of Arizona's governor race, despite all the odds, the low approval rating, Katie Hobbs will be re-elected as governor over Karen Robeson as she defeats her by 3 percentage points. Republican turnout super low this cycle, not really wanting to turn out despite Donald Trump saying go turn out. Katie Hobbs defeats Karen Robeson by 3 points. Out of Kansas governor race, Lynn Rogers will be re-elected as governor of Kansas, defeating Derek Schmidt by 2 percentage points. Big win for Lynn Rogers and the Democrats here in the state of Kansas. Out of Texas governor race, too close to call. Julian Castro has a 2-point lead over Greg Abbott. Wisconsin's governor race, too close to call. Mandela Barnes has a 2-point lead over Tim Mickles. Florida, too close to call. Nikki Fried has a 1-point lead over Adam Putnam. Ohio's governor race, too close to call. A statistical tie between the two candidates. South Carolina, too close to call. A statistical tie between the two candidates. Here is the governor's composition. Democrats only need 3 seats to obtain a majority in the Governor's Association. They have 23 seats. Republicans at 16. It is now 1 a.m. We now have poll closings out of Alaska. And here are the first round results in the Senate race. Leslie McGuire, a Native American state senator from the state of Alaska, currently in first place at 39%. Based off the numbers we have, she is doing very well with moderate Republicans, doing very well with independents, and it seems like a majority of Democrats are swinging in to vote for her. Incumbent Senator Dan Sullivan comes in second at 29%. Sarah Palin, the former governor, at 23%. And former magistrate judge Joe Miller at 9%. And now, but we can make a call out of Montana Senate race, and with that we can project that Steve Daines will be re-elected to another term to the United States Senate, defeating Wilmot Collins by 1%. A very close election here in Montana. Wilmot Collins, another phenomenal candidate. Democrats put up a mayor of a rural town, actually of Helena, Montana, the first black mayor of that town. He will be narrowly defeated by Steve Daines. And here's the current governor's composition. Republicans at 51 seats to the Democrats 48 seats. Out of Alaska's governor race, the first round falls. Al Gross, a doctor, currently at 47%. A lot of Democrats, a lot of independents, a coalition are coming to vote to back Al Gross at 47%. He could end up winning this race on the second ballot instead of the third. Nancy Dahlstrom, the lieutenant governor, sits at 23%. Mike Chenault, a mayor, sits at 19%. And a state senator, Natasha Imhoff, at 11%. Here's the current governor's composition. No change here. It is now 1:15 a.m. We can now make a call out of the state of Texas at a big win for the Democrats here. Julian Castro will be elected as the first Democrat governor of Texas since Ann Richards back in 2004, I want to say. No, 2002. I want to say 2002. I could be wrong. Or 1998. Something. It was in the 90s. But Julian Castro will be elected as the governor of Texas. A big win for the Democrats as he narrowly defeats Greg Abbott out. Doing very well with Hispanic voters. Since he is Hispanic, he ended up winning a bunch of Hispanic voters that went for Pat Fallon. So a bunch of votes splitting down in the Rio Grande Valley that gave Julian Castro the win. It is now 1:30 a.m. We have updates out of Alaska. And here are the results of the second round. Leslie McGuire now sits at 41%. Dan Sullivan sits at 32%. and Sarah Palin sits at 28%. This is going to go down the wire between McGuire and Sullivan, it seems like. And we don't know who Palin's second or third choice voters will be, but it could go either way between McGuire and Sullivan. Could Sullivan lose a quote-unquote primary challenge to Leslie McGuire? As on the Alaska side, Al Gross barely missing the mark, but he's at 49%, Nancy Dahlstrom at 29%, and Mike Chenault at 22%. It is now 1:45 a.m. We can now make a call out of Wisconsin's governor race. Mandela Barnes will narrowly be re-elected to a second term as governor, defeating Tim Michels very narrowly. A lot of white working class voters did not turn out in this race. They didn't want to vote for either Michels or Barnes, and if they did turn out, they voted third party. This was enough to give Mandela Barnes the victory out of the state of Wisconsin. It's now 2 a.m. We now have results, the final results out of Alaska, and we can project that Leslie McGuire will be the, I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong, the first Native American senator from the state of Alaska. She will narrowly defeat Dan Sullivan by 2 percentage points. She won over enough Palin supporters to win a Senate seat here in Alaska. Big win for Leslie McGuire. However, independents can finally say they have a governor's seat that they won. Al Gross will be elected as the governor of Alaska, and he will not be caucusing with either Republican or Democrat as he defeats Nancy Dahlstrom by 16 points, a massive landslide victory for independent Al Gross. Massive win for the independent. It is now 2:15 a.m. We can now make a call out of the state of Florida. Big blow to the Democrats that are hoping to flip this seat. Adam Putnam will be elected to his first term as governor, succeeding Ron DeSantis as he defeats Nikki Fried by less than 1%. It is now 2:30 a.m. We can now make a call out of Ohio's governor race. And hey, you give and you take, right? Ohio's governor race will go to the Democrats and John Cranley. John Cranley ran as a moderate blue dog Democrat, won over a bunch of Republican voters who were turned off by Ron Hood's far rightness. So John Cranley will give the Democrats a governor seat in Ohio, defeating Ron Hood very, very narrowly. And we can now project that the majority will go to the Democrats. The Democrats will win the majority in the National Governors Association. It is now 2:45 a.m. We can now make a call out of South Carolina's governor race. Pamela Evett will be elected to her first term as governor very narrowly over Mann McLeod, outperforming the Senate race. The Senate race challenger Mark Burns, who was very right-wing compared to Pamela Evett. Pamela Evett will keep this governor seat in Republican hands. And we can now project that the majority in the House of Representatives will go to the Democrats as a net 66 seats. If they win the House of Representatives, they will go on to win 276 House seats. To the Republicans, 161. That is a massive majority for the Democrats, and Donald Trump's going to have to do a lot of swindling, a lot of work, a lot of compromise if he wants to get anything passed going forward. And here is the final Senate composition. Republicans at 51 seats and the Democrats 49 seats. The final numbers in the Governor's Association, that number on the Republican side is wrong. It should be Democrats have 26 seats, Republicans have 23 seats. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Cat One saying,